Okay, welcome to the second video in the series on the Weimar Nazi Germany paper for Edexcel. Today we're going to be having a look at the explain question. So let's start by just having a look at an example question. So the question will always take the format of explain why, and then there'll be the question. So explain, in this case, why the German economy recovered in the years 1924 to 29, and it is worth 12 marks. And then you are given stimulus points underneath. So you may use the following in your answer: Gustav Stresemann and or the Dawes plan. Bear in mind that those stimulus points are optional. Okay, so it says you may use the following. You don't have to use them. Okay, but notice the fact that you do have to use information of your own, and that's going to be important going forward. So for this question, we recommend that you do 3 Peel paragraphs. Use the stimulus points to help you, but you must go beyond the stimulus points. If you don't go beyond the stimulus points, you cannot access the top bracket of marks, okay? So you want to be going beyond those stimulus points. I would always suggest that either your first or second paragraph, you are going beyond the stimulus point. So make sure that either in your first or second paragraph, you're doing a point which is not mentioned in the stimulus point. So when I plan this answer in a second and write it up, you'll see that my first paragraph is not going to be on either of those points, or I'll mention Stresemann a little bit, but it will be quite separate. In addition, for this question, when we are doing appeal, so point, evidence, explain, link, for our evidence, we need to be ensuring we've got 2 to 3 pieces of really specific evidence included. And then when explaining, we need to be using the wording of the question. In this case, the wording of the question, I'll just highlight it for you now so you can see. And when I'm explaining, I need to be saying, this means the German economy recovered in this period because, okay, or in the years 1924 to 29 because. If I don't, I'm not answering the question, okay? Right. So I'm going to write just 1 paragraph today. Obviously, in the exam, you'd want to write 3 peels. You would have to answer this question. You'd have, remember, it's 1.5 minutes per mark. So in theory, 18 minutes. But I would recommend you try and get this done in about 15 minutes so you can spend a bit more time on the other questions on the paper, which are, we're going to require you to read a little bit more. And you'll see those in the next video. Okay, so let's start then by planning our points out. So I'll just do my plan here. So we need 3 paragraphs. Okay, so the first one, or to help me plan, I'm going to just look at my timeline. You could also look at the flashcards, use them both in your revision. So the question is asking about the German economy in the years 24 to 29. So what I'll be looking at on the timeline is, first of all, I'm looking for the dates 24 to 29. So I can see that Stresemann's economic reforms is the years 1924 to 29. And in particular, there are 3 reforms you need to know about. So the changes to the currency, the Dawes plan, and the Young plan. So those are going to be really simply my 3 points. Okay, so here we got the new currency. We've got here the Dawes plan. And we've got here the Young plan. Okay. Now, for each point, you'd then want to just jot down your evidence. So for the new currency, we'd want to talk about the Rentenmark, which then became the Reichsmark. And sorry, that should say Reichs, not Reichmark. So the Reichsmark, the fact that it was a national currency based on gold reserves and so on. So I would start writing something like Rentenmark, and that was 1923. That will be on the crib sheet you have. Okay. Then it becomes a Reichsmark, gold reserves, then dealt with hyperinflation. Okay. Right. So that's what I'd be talking about for that. For Dawes plan, I'd want to be talking about the following. So if I just flip back, the fact that they received 25 billion in loans, 50 million pounds a year reparations payments reduced to, and the French left the Ruhr. So France left the Ruhr, lower rep payments, so reparation payments, so 50 mil, and then also 25 bill loan. Okay, and then for the Young plan, I'd want to put the dates in as well for these. So 1924, and the Young plan is at the very end of the period, so 1929, and that is where the reparation payments are reduced to, let me just double check, I forgot myself, 2 billion, there we go, okay, reduced to $2 billion, okay. You could also talk about, for the Young plan, the fact that Germany was given more time, so 59 years to pay back. Right, so that's basically what I do in the exam. I'd spend maybe a minute or two, just jot down my 3 points and maybe jot down what I'm going to talk about. Okay, that should not take any longer than that. And then in terms of the paragraph itself, so Drag that down. So I'm going to write, probably the most tricky one is the rent and mark paragraph. So let's do that one. And notice how the rent and mark is not one of the ones in the stimulus points. So I'm going beyond the stimulus points, and therefore I can access the top bracket of marks. So I start by saying one reason why the German economy recovered was thanks to the new currency. Although Stressman does introduce this new currency, the fact that I'm talking about the new currency means I've gone beyond the stimulus points. Okay, it's thanks to the new currency. In 1923, Stresemann introduced the Rentenmark, which was a new currency backed by the gold reserves of Germany. So that's my first piece of evidence. In fact, I've got two pieces of evidence there. So I've got 1923 Rentenmark, and it was actually gold reserves. That's three pieces in one sentence. Okay, backed by the gold reserves of Germany. This later became the national currency. So the rights. Okay, so that's my let me just make sure I've got everything. Gold reserves, Reichsmark. Okay. See if I missed anything. Okay, so then what I would say is given that this currency, no, in fact, so now when you're doing your explanation, so this, let me just color code it for you. So in red, we've got the point sentence. In blue, we've got the evidence. I know the evidence seems short, but we've actually got quite a lot. So 1923, Rentenmark, gold reserves, and then Reichsmark. I could also talk about 1924 as well. Okay, so I'm then going to say this led to the German economy recovering because having a national currency grounded in the price of gold meant that the currency was much more trustworthy. This meant that Germany would be able to borrow more easily. Sorry, this meant that that people would be willing, other countries would be willing to lend to Germany, and the people of Germany would be stay assured that the value of their money would remain constant. In creating this currency, then I'm going to talk about hyperinflation. Stresemann dealt with the problem of hyperinflation. Creating this trustworthy currency, Stresemann dealt with the problem of hyperinflation, which allowed the German economy to recover and flourish. Okay, something like that. Look at the explanation, guys. Look how detailed that is. Okay. Right. If I did three of those, then that would be I'll be looking at the top band there. Okay. Right. I hope you found that helpful. Stay tuned for the next video, which is where we move on to the slightly trickier questions, which is 3A, then B, then C, then D. Okay. And that is Weimar done when we've done that. Right. Thank you very much for watching. Stop.